Alright everybody, welcome back! So today we are taking a look at the new Hunter that got out of the game. This is the Swiss Hunter F.58 in the German tree at a battle rating of 9.3. And to be quite frank with you, this is probably my favorite edition this patch. Definitely the one that I'm having the most fun in. Probably just because it's too low in BR, but regardless of that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. So, just for a little bit of context, this is not the first Hunter in the game, of course. We already have 3 other Hunters in the game. All 3 of them are in the British tree as far as I'm aware. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we have the Tech Tree Hunters, which are the Hunter F1 and the Hunter F6. Hunter F1 has been in the game for forever. It was one of the old 9.0 planes with the MiG-17 and the Saber, of course. Hunter F6 got added, I'd say probably about 3 years ago now. 4 SRAMs, no flares. I believe it has the same engine as this. Hunter FGA-9 was added as a Rank 5 Premium. For the UK, it is a Rhodesian Hunter, if I remember correctly, and that has A9Es and also no flares. I know for a fact that it has the same engine that this thing does. Oh, I forgot there is also the Swedish Hunter, but that thing is not very good at all. At least it does get A9Bs. So, both the Swedish Hunter, the J34, and the Rhodesian Hunter, the premium one, the FGA-9, that's in the British tech tree, are both 9.3 just like this thing. However, it has better flight performance than the Swedish one, better missiles than both. This thing carries AIM-9Js versus AIM-9Es and AIM-9Bs on the other ones. And on top of that, it also gets access to flares, while still being at 9.3. Might be a slight problem here. This combination of factors just makes this plane really, really good. Now, the AIM-9J, you only get 2 of them, of course, but sitting at a battle rating of 9.3, it is very, very, very good. You can't deny that. At top tier, the missiles are pretty mid. They work. I'm not a fan of them personally. It feels like they have about as much range as the R60, maybe slightly more, without being able to pull nearly as hard as the R60, and they're just worse than the AIM-9D and AIM-9G. But at a battle rating of 9.3, where only a couple other planes have access to those missiles, the AIM-9J is pretty competitive. And it gives you the reach to go out and touch stuff that's a lot faster than, like, you'll see a lot of F-104s, SU-7s, stuff like that at this PR. And as long as you get within a reasonable range, even if the missiles only pull 20 Gs, that's still more than enough to take out most stuff at this BR. And especially a lot of the flareless planes that are just incredibly fast, this is going to be your best way to take them out. Now, you do gain access to 60 flares. That is the biggest advantage of this thing, in my opinion, is just having flares in the first place. You can see I'm fighting a lot of SE-25s right now. You know, the SE-25 and A-10 spam is still ongoing and probably will be for quite some time. Having countermeasures in the first place is just a really big advantage. Now you can see I'm just bringing flares. I don't even think any flares reinforced personally. I haven't really ran that many people running radar missiles like that MiG-21S at the beginning of the match, and almost everyone that I have found is just running R3Rs or something else like that. That's incredibly easy to dodge even without chaff. Now, if you're getting up tiered a lot, and maybe hypothetically speaking, you're fighting, something like the Mirage 3E or the F8, which has the AIM-9C, those planes would actually have some somewhat competent radar missiles. You might want to start thinking about breaking chaff, but either way, I don't think it's a really big deal. Now, I did say you're facing a lot of faster planes at this BR. You can go above Mach in a dive. You can see right here I'm going Mach 1.05. The thing won't rip, but at sea level, in a straight line, you're not going to be going over like Mach 0.94, 0.95. So stuff like this MiG-21 F-13, this is exactly the case when you want to use your AIM-9J. I would recommend saving them. I wouldn't fire them at stuff like, Sabres and stuff like that you can just catch and shoot anyways. Save them for these faster planes like MiG-21s, SU-7s, F-104s, other stuff like that. You are going to be the best of the 9.3 planes, or at least the second best of the 9.3 planes to take out those stuff, because you have access to flares, so you're not going to get missiled by them like the I-38 does. And then I would say the A4N is probably better at killing them, just because it gets access to 4 competent missiles with good range. But this is still a very good option either way. Now, what's really nice is when you get into these dogfight scenarios, since you have the energy retention that the Hunter has, and you have the better engine that the FGA-9 gets, you don't pull quite as hard as a lot of those stuff like a MiG-17 or a Sabre is going to out-turn you. But if you can take it vertical, you actually are somewhat competent in a dogfight. I wouldn't necessarily recommend turn fighting, but it's definitely not a slouch. And a lot of the time when you're getting up tiered and you're facing stuff like F-100s, Phantoms, and other early supersonic, you actually will beat them in a dogfight. Now, if you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed that I've been pretty much instantly shredding almost every plane I've hit. This plane gets access to 4 Aidens, which are pretty good, at least for this BR. Now, they are a little bit slow in velocity, but since the fix, they've mostly been reliable for me. I have been getting some hits and crits more than I was last patch before they changed over there with a high explosive filler. But overall, since you have 4 of them, you can usually rely on them to give you pretty decent damage. Just expect that they're not going to be as reliable as it may have been a few weeks ago before the patch and before whatever happened with the Aidens and the Defas. So, especially when you're fighting stuff like SE-25s, which have the tanky damage models, you might have to put a decent amount of shells in it, but fighter-sized targets, you'll probably be fine. Now, I will say one thing you can do if you see them up at 8 or 9 kilometers right now, the Hunter's fuel efficiency is already pretty good, and then with these big maps that we have at high tier for some reason, you are going to have to worry about fuel. You only get a maximum of 12 minutes of fuel, so I would recommend climbing. Because you can see, well, at least if you've been paying attention whenever I've just been flying normally, it doesn't burn much fuel, even at 100% throttle, as long as you're up at altitude. I've actually been able to cruise around just normally for almost the entire 25-minute match like this. And you're going to have to do this, especially if you want to try and catch people on the airfield just like this right here. Because you are a subsonic at supersonic tiers, stuff like this Yak-28 right here would easily run away from me if I wasn't able to get them. So that extra fuel efficiency is a really big bonus that you can get out of the plane. Now, speaking of those maps, I had some people ask for my opinion on them. I thought they were a great addition at top tier. The problem is, this is not a top tier plane. I'm sitting at 9.3. In my opinion, I don't think that I should be in a subsonic aircraft and having to cross maps this size. I think that all they need to do is go ahead and make the maps go at top tier, above 11.0, which is where they belong, in my opinion at least, and it would solve most of the issues. Let these old Korean era-ish jets, like the subsonics at least, exist on these smaller maps. This is perfect for them. You know, maybe even the early supersonics, like these F-104s and stuff like that. I think that the big EC-sized maps should be reserved for top-tier planes only, which have the radar and the missiles to compete. But nothing we can do about it right now, so you definitely want to try and go ahead and abuse your fuel efficiency, because that's the only way you're going to be keeping up with these people. Now, for my Air RB players, that's pretty much it for Air. It does also get access to Mavericks, though, so for those of y'all who play Ground RB, I'm going to have a quick clip showing just what it can do in Ground RB, because it is a nice option at 9.3. Now, while it may not be as good as the A4N, at 9.3, having Mavericks at all is pretty rare. Now, these are only the AGM-65Bs. They do not get the thermal sights. They won't work at night or in the rain. But during fair weather, they do give you an option to hit people from further away, especially SAMs and AA, which is really big. So I would just recommend bringing the Mavericks and killing 2 targets with them in RTB. The rockets are tiny, and while you can kill stuff with it, it takes a lot in concentrated firepower. So hope y'all enjoy. Peace.